Excellency, thank you so much for being with us. Would you share with us a little bit, you're a nuncio to two African countries. Would you share with us a little bit the life of the church in Cameroon, but also in Equatorial Guinea?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. And being the nuncio in Cameroon and Guinea Equatorial, I have completely embraced and loved these countries. And we are in the midst of a very lively church that has many initiatives in the pastoral segment of life. And often I find myself celebrating Mass for huge amounts of people. The other day I celebrated Mass for 8,000 people at once. We have a lot of dedicated religious and priests. It's a vast country, which in the case of the Cameroon, which goes from the Atlantic to the Sahel. It's got an Anglophone sector, it's got a Francophone sector, so it's a completely bilingual country. It's very varied, from tropical rainforest to the desert, and the bishops that are in the different parts of the country are very close to the people, with very much shepherds' hearts, and live the realities that they live. In the north, obviously, it's perhaps most demanding, because there's only 2 months of rainfall a year. So you have 10 months of dry season. Whereas in the rainforest, it's a completely different reality, and the forest provides much more easily for needs. And then you have the coastal region, which obviously is always abundant in fish, and that. Cameroon, its name comes from shrimp. I mean, Rio dos Camarões was the original name, and then it was adopted by the Germans and then kept by the English and the French, and to the modern day name of Cameroon. Guinea Equatorial is the only Spanish-speaking country in Africa. There's 3 Guineas. One is Guinea-Bissau, which is a Portuguese expression. Then there's Guinea-Conakry, which is a French expression. And there's the Guinea Equatoriale, being on the equator, closest to the equator. That's where its name comes from. And it is of a Spanish expression. And it is approximately 2 million inhabitants, just short of that. It's about 95% Catholic, and it's also very well off, because they've found out that there is petroleum, and they've been exploring the petroleum for some years now. And so the infrastructure is actually very, very good.
And what is the role of the church in those two countries?
The church, the Catholic Church, is very present in the countries. It is present where other institutions are not. We have a very large network of schools, of clinics, of social outreach, and it's really one of the main providers of education. It's also considered of high quality, and has given the future to generations of Cameroonians, as well as Guineans. The church is a point of reference. The church is very much a force of hope and development, and of development in every way, really. So we have Catholic regional university, which a pontifical university, which covers various countries and has faculties in different countries, such as in Central Africa and Guinea and Gabon, starting up there as well. And so the church has a very, very important role recognized by authorities, and we have a very good relation with ecumenical and interreligious groups. Of course, it is a country that has its challenges. We have the Anglophone separatist region, which covers about 6 Anglophone dioceses and about 6 million people.
And for a few years there has been also some violence involved in this conflict.
There's been 8 years of violence, and I just want to correct myself, there's 5 dioceses with about 6 million inhabitants, and it's been about going 8 to 9 years now, where there's been some violence of a separatist group. We also have Boko Haram in the far north, and we have about 1 million refugees in the east coming from Chad and Central African Republic. So it's not without its challenges, but it also has the church is very much involved with the refugees. There's the Jesuit Refugee Services. The Diocese of Marua is very, very involved, and we've had a lot of aid that's come from many countries from around the world, particularly in Europe and North America. And with regards to the Boko Haram, well, we're constantly working on interreligious relations. One of the first things that I did when I arrived a couple of years ago was to visit with imams and visit with religious leaders and just get to know each other as human beings and people of faith. And that has helped, and they have visited us at the Nunciature as well. And with the separatist group in the Anglo-Saxon region, well, the church has been very, very active in trying to talk to the different parties and people that are involved, and just trying to get people to talk together and to work out some of the difficulties.
The church is also involved in a very important process of reconciliation.
Yes, the church is involved in first person, and thanks to the president of the Conference of Bishops, Archbishop Andrew Nkea, who has invested himself and his energies into trying to bring the different parties together. The reality is that we need to work together, the different institutions, be it the civil institutions, be it the religious institutions, be it the educational institutions. We all have to come together and work together, because peace is something that is cultivated. You have to believe in it, you have to think in those terms. So it is a work of a process that goes on. One that has brought some positive fruits, but still much more to do. In my first year when I arrived, I was asked to do a little bit of a spot on peace, because we have an exhibition on planting peace at the Apostolic Nuncio. These beautiful photos of children in their uniforms with this traditional peace plant, and each one of them says a small phrase for them, what is peace? Now we're talking about children that are 7, 8, 9, 15 years old maximum. And of course their answers are very genuine, very direct, and very honest. You know, some of them will say, well, peace is being able to go to school without violence. Peace is being able to sleep in your bed without violence. Peace is when people love each other. Very direct, very simple answers, but really speak volumes of what peace is and the value of peace for these children. And children are always the first victims of conflict, and the ones who usually pay the highest price. So we try to get these messages out, and this is one example of one religious order that represents over 300 religious orders
that are working
in Cameroon, each one with either schools or healthcare or social outreach or different pastoral approaches. There's some very creative initiatives. For example, we have one house which is called Foyer de la Foi, Home of Faith, and this is a place that gives kind of a home for children that just came out of prison for some minor infraction, and gives them a new chance at life. We have another house that is run by another congregation that has that welcomes children during the day that just came off the train from different parts of the country looking for a livelihood, really, and sometimes fall into all kinds of problems. And this house, well, they have a doctor there, they have a possibility to learn how to read and write, and just to wash clothes, if you like. as well as look at other possibilities. And we also have like orphanages, which are run by the Archdiocese of Yaoundé, which take children in and give them education and try to help them get into institutions where they can even reach and become professionals as a doctor or a professor, and so them come back and help the institution out. So there's a lot of wonderful stories.
So a huge impact on the charitable side, but I understand there's also a lot of interest in Eucharistic adoration. You said that if you celebrate Mass, you have thousands of people coming.
People are very devout and they believe, and they hold on to their faith as really a way of moving forward. It is common for me to celebrate Mass for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. Just a month ago, I celebrated for 8,000. So people do come out. Celebrations are very lively, very colorful, very full of music, and they just go on for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours sometimes, you know. And because when
no complaints about long homilies.
People come to Mass and they want to be at Mass. So it's a completely different, the idea of time, the idea of what we're doing on Sunday morning is completely different. That is the main event, is going to Mass. So obviously it's a very powerful occasion, and I have also experienced moments when I have gone in with my own preoccupations due to my own ministry and the things that I have to develop, and after 2 or 3 hours you forget about those problems and you actually get involved in the joy of the people that are celebrating.
Well, maybe an inspiration also for other countries of how to engage also in Holy Mass and in faith. But maybe allow me a little bit to shift gears here also. Why has Pope Leo XIV chosen Cameroon, Guinea Equatorial as his destination also for his one of his first apostolic trips and his first one to Africa?
Well, I think looking at Pope Leo XIV, we know that he is a religious of the Augustinian order. And St. Augustine was one of the greatest saints in the Church, a doctor of the Church, father of the Church, and he was an African. And I think Pope Leo feels himself very much a son of St. Augustine, and in a spiritual way, a son of Africa, if you can say it that way. And so it makes all the sense that he would kind of in some way trace back his spiritual inheritance to Africa. And at the same time, we have to admit it's a huge honor, but it's a huge nod to the African reality, a continent that has a lot to give and is ready to give. I have to say that in Cameroon, there are a lot of vocations to the priesthood and the religious life. They're people with a lot of talent, a lot of gifts. And I think it's an important recognition of Africa in this time that we live. So Africa is a vital part in today's church, just as is so many the other continents, but certainly Africa has its place. And I think Pope Leo recognizes that and wants to be with them and wants to live with them and really help them take their place in the church.
Pope Francis often spoke of the necessity to go out to the peripheries. Now, being here in Rome, having maybe a very European or centralized European mindset, we might think very, very quickly of Africa as maybe also the peripheries. Do the faithful see themselves as the periphery, or do they see themselves maybe more in the center of the church?
Yes, well, it all depends on the perspective of the person. And of course, they don't see themselves in the periphery at all. They see themselves very much as where the world rotates around in many ways. And many ways, and rightfully so, because, the average age in Cameroon is 18 years old. So it's a young, lively, active and energetic church who believes in dreams and believes in a better future. And I think this is going to be very much evident in this whole trip. I have to say that my time in Cameroon has been very fulfilling. It's been full of surprises in a positive way. It's been very satisfying, and I believe there is much more to be done there.
In 2009, when Pope Benedict visited Yaoundé and Cameroon and Africa by that, I remembered hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people coming together, walking for hours and days to see the Holy Father and welcoming him. Is it something that we can also expect for Pope Leo to see, to
Absolutely,
experience?
Absolutely. There will be millions and millions of people out. Cameroon is kind of a special kind of a country. It stretches from the Atlantic to the Sahara, the Sahel, and we have had 3 visits in the past. And in 1985, John Paul II came. He spent 8 days, and he visited all the archdioceses, and he celebrated the sacraments in one diocese, the baptism; in another diocese, the other sacraments of the initiation and ordinations. Then we had a visit in 1995, where John Paul II signed amongst the very first documents that he signed outside of the Vatican was the Encyclica An Ecclesia in Africa. And it was signed in Yaoundé, in the Apostolic Nuncio chair, on the desk that I work on.
Wow.
So I'm rather quite blessed. And this gathering brought together presidents of the Episcopal conferences to Yaoundé, where they celebrated Mass, and then the document was distributed to all the churches in Africa. And in 2009, we had the visit of Pope Benedict XVI, and it too was connected with the Synod of Africa. And so we've had these 3 visits, which have greatly left a great impact on the people. And it has greatly helped us as well as a church, and in evangelization and in the ministry of the church. It has sparked inspiration and encouragement sometimes in regions and areas of the country which are quite demanding and difficult. I've personally visited places where there is no running water, there is no electrical current, and so I've visited for a week and stayed and got a good sense of reality. But to say that these visits have always been huge successes, they've always come at a time of particular crisis in the life of the country. 85 was like that, 95 was like that, 2009 was like that. So, I would say that sometimes when there are crises, it is also a moment of blessings, because it makes us review and look at new approaches and better approaches, be it within the life of the church, be it within the life of a country. And so it is with great hope that we look forward to this visit.
So is this also the hope for the visit of Pope Leo, that he also gives some inspiration for the country, for the church there?
Absolutely. We look at this visit of Pope Leo in the region with great hope. His first words when he was elected was, "Peace be with you." We believe that it will find a very special echo in this region.
A much needed message.
Which will be in both Anglophone and Francophone regions, which will be a perfect stage for the African continent.
Wonderful. And your personal hopes for the visit of the Holy Father?
There's so many. Well, I think, we know it's a moment of blessing. It's a moment of regeneration, of new life. We have a lot of expectations, be it within the church, also with interreligious dialogue, particularly with our with the Muslim population, which we have good cohabitation as it is, but I'm sure that this is going to reinforce it. We also believe that for the youth it'll give them a lot of hope and help basically to look to a more to build a future which is much more conducive to today's expectations of looking at the questions of corruption and looking at the questions of governance and all of those questions that are very real, and we feel them as anybody else does.
There will be a huge attention on Africa, on Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. What can the church in other countries, maybe here in Italy, around the world, in Western countries, learn from the church in Africa?
I believe the Africans in the region where I'm serving have this sense of faith which is very unique. They believe in a very lively way, and we have had, for example, in the Cameroon, periods in our history after the German colonies ceased to be, and between the English and the French, there was a period of 7-8 years where there was no clergy allowed. And so the church was basically looked after by lay catechists, fathers and mothers, and they were the ones who had the keys to the buildings, to the churches. They kept the registers, they prepared people for the sacraments of baptism and marriage and all of that. And there are extraordinary witnesses, accounts of people that gave their lives and were really martyrs in their own right. And so and often they would prepare these people for the sacraments, and then when military chaplains came from one or other country, then they would have them baptized or married or that kind of a thing. And it was thanks to the people of the land and thanks to these catechists, which were lay, that the church went on. And we can't forget that. And I think it's important to bring out these images as examples and models of a church that is also co-responsible in the sense that it is in the hands of the people, the faithful, that work together with the clergy and the religious, but yet has its role, and a vital role, in keeping the church alive. And this we've seen, and this is within the last 100 years, 150 years maximum. So these are things that the Western world, who often is grappling with the role of laity and clergy and is grappling with, just faith. I think these examples are unique and are very real and speak to people of all around the world.
And there are also many vocations coming from African countries.
In the case of Cameroon, there's a lot of vocations. I mean, we have no seminary with less than 100 seminarians, and we're looking at 150, 200, 250. There's also colleges that are kind of propedeutical kind of schools with 400 and plus. Of course, these are all with very limited means, very limited resources, but still they go ahead and they provide some of the best education available. Most of the people that are in the professional areas come from the Catholic schools or even some of our other Christian brethren schools. So there are vocations, and there are many from Cameroon in the US, Canada, and in Europe, and I believe that the experience has been a very positive one.
So truly the hope and future of the church. And Excellency, thank you so much for your time, and all the best also for the preparations that are surely still to be had for this very important apostolic trip.
Thank you very much.